Welcome to the Semi-Retired Podcast with your hosts, Dave Farrant.
And me, Richard Bonomo. So Dave, how's it going this week?
Richard, I'm having a great week, but not as great a week as Canada's top 100 CEOs.
Do tell.
I don't know if you noticed in the news a couple of weeks ago, but it was revealed that the top 100 Canadian CEOs are earning an average of $1,345 a minute.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad, eh? I'm not sure I've ever done that well. So I did a bit of math on that, and what that works out to is that every 43 minutes, said CEOs earn the equivalent of what an average Canadian earns in a year, which is $58,000. What that means is by the end of the week, let's say I had started working on Monday morning as one of these people, by now I would have earned 55 years of income, or an entire lifetime of income since Monday.
Is that why they don't hold like whole hour-long meetings? Because they feel bad that they're earning so much, they go 43 minutes?
Why do I bring this up? It just seems to me to be too much. Maybe this is curmudgeonly of me. Maybe this is a little bit old-fashioned of me. But, I just look at it and think, I'm not sure that could possibly be the case. The one man or one woman could be worth $1,345 a minute. Just doesn't feel right. Sits badly on my bones. Don't forget that number. 50 years of income every week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thinking about that.
No wonder people drink on the weekends.
I will be. I know that. Today we're talking about, let's look back on our third episode, way back in August, we talked about UFOs. So that phenomena of UFOs coming to Earth, reported phenomena, Roswell, all that, Area 51. Today we're going to talk about the aliens themselves. Not the craft they arrive in, but are there alien civilizations in the galaxy, in the universe? If they come here, what's it going to be like, and how has our popular culture thought about that subject? And we've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Richard, tee it up.
It's fascinating to think that in the gigantic universe we live in, the ever-expanding universe, as we joked about, the same as the ever-expanding waistline of the middle-aged man, that there cannot be any other civilizations like us, and it boggles the mind that there wouldn't be.
Okay, some facts to set context for this discussion. Our home galaxy, the Milky Way, which we can see in the dark sky at night sometimes, contains, according to scientists, not Richard and I, we haven't counted them, somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars. So we'll take the low-end number for this conversation, 100 billion stars. That's a lot of stars. And our sun is a star, so objects like our sun. The diameter of our Milky Way galaxy is somewhere between 100,000 and 120,000 light years across. The light year is a measurement of distance, not time. 1 light year is equivalent to 10 trillion kilometers. So 100,000 times 10 trillion kilometers, that's a pretty big place.
That's a hell of a road trip.
It's a lot of zeros. That's a hell of a road trip, exactly. If you've seen pictures of our galaxy, you know it kind of looks like a pizza with a bulge in the center. The bulge is 12,000 light years thick, and the rest of the disk, we live out by the crust on one of the little pepperoni slices that we call the solar system, is 1,000 light years thick. So 1,000 light years thick, 12,000 through the middle, 100,000 across. Big flat pizza.
And would you say the planets are like the olives?
Little tiny black olives floating in a sea of marinara sauce. You got that right.
I'm getting hungry.
Each sun-like star in the Milky Way, because some stars are not like the sun, some are too hot, some are too cool. Every sun that's like ours in the galaxy likely, says science, harbors up to one rocky planet in the range of orbital distances where liquid water could be stable on the surface. We think that's important for life. As Richard and I were prepping this morning, he reminded me that that doesn't necessarily encompass all life.
No, it's life similar to ours.
Life similar to ours, exactly. So for whom water would be important, there's lots of water in our bodies. That's us kind of like looking from an Earth-centric position. The universe is full of galaxies like our Milky Way galaxy. It is estimated that there are between, this is a wide estimate, 6 and 20 trillion galaxies in the universe. This is a number that's evolving all the time. Let's take the low number, 6 trillion galaxies. And our closest neighboring galaxy, Andromeda, love that name, is 2.5 million light years from us. So imagine we're like a little village in the desert, 100,000 light years across, 2.5 million light years, or 25 times our diameter, if I got that right, is the next little village called Andromeda. So in all that vastness, the question becomes, and we're going to deal with that today, could we really be alone?
It's a question that civilization's been pondering for a long time, as long as we've seen lights in the sky, before we realize some were meteorites, some may not be. We have UAPs now, as they're called.
The unidentified aerial phenomena?
It's not an object. Now they're saying phenomena, so that it could be, I don't know, a star farting.
Swamp gas. So it's all swamp gas, right?
Space gas.
A weather balloon collapsing, all that stuff.
It's one way to dismiss it as actually being an object. It could just be gas.
I think you're right. I think it's an attempt to sort of say, hey, maybe it's not a thing at all. It's a dismissal move.
It's the equivalent of toilet paper being renamed bathroom tissue.
I dismiss it here and now. UFOs, unidentified flying objects, were just fine.
It gives them an out. It gives anybody an out to say, well, it's not an object. It could be something else.
Them being the authorities, right?
Yes, them. The famous thems and theys.
The thems and the theys. The deep state.
The deep state. The ones who own all the zeros. Yeah. When you look at that and you say, we have, what was the number of stars you mentioned? 6 trillion? 6 trillion galaxies?
6 trillion galaxies.
It's inconceivable to me that there is no life out there, whether it's similar to ours, completely different, whether it's sentient gas or a multi-tentacled Cthulhu-like beast that can somehow operate controls of a ship or interdimensional craft of any kind. Yet, people with no evidence, and we've seen lights, we've seen footage of UFOs go by, we find that harder to believe than to believe in the existence of a God in which all we have is a book written by someone possibly many years ago.
By the way, I think I had sentient gas last weekend. Took me a while to get to that, but I think it was, I know what caused that. Yeah, hopefully not today.
Was it a UAP?
It was a UAP caused
UAP stuck in gas, the colon.
Yeah. So to your point, we find it easier to believe in a 2,000-year-old book, most of which doesn't make any sense at all, than we do in the really good science that's emerged in the last 100 years, the astrophysics and the cosmology, the fact that we know now that the whole universe is made of the same 90-something elements. The scientists know that. They're not guessing. They can tell by analyzing the light that reaches us from these distant galaxies. So let's think about our Milky Way galaxy as a home for other civilizations. One of the big surprise discoveries of the last, I guess it's 10 years in astronomy, is how many exoplanets astronomy keeps finding. In other words, planets that are existing outside our solar system. They're hard to detect. Imagine, they're really small. They emit no light of their own. So we can only detect them because of reflected light or their gravitational influence on objects around them. And yet they seem to be everywhere. So it's becoming increasingly likely, it seems to me, that there's other life, maybe not so far away. Mind you, it could be lichens on rocks.
One of the arguments you'll often hear is that we haven't had the famous first contact. But when you look at something you were talking about earlier before we started recording, if you look at the amount of time that we've been around in a way that can make a difference in terms of science, that is a small blip in the giant timeline of the existence of the universe. So the fact that all we're looking at is recorded history, it's a very, very small portion of time. And the fact that we have very little, we don't have a first contact at this point, doesn't mean that this has never happened before.
That's a fair point. I mean, we would have no way of knowing, although, let's face it, it's very commonly speculated, if an alien civilization visited Earth millennia ago. I don't know if you recall, like I do, when the Eric von Daniken documentary Chariots of the Gods came out. We watched it on TV. I'm like 9, 10 years old or something like that. You can still find it on YouTube. It looks dated now, but that was his whole hypothesis, was that captured in ancient art that we could see from whatever civilization you want to name is evidence of beings visiting the Earth. Did that happen or not? There's no definitive proof. It's fun to speculate about. When I think of movies in popular culture that address that idea, the only one that comes to mind is 2001: A Space Odyssey, where we see the man-apes awake to find that obelisk has been installed in front of them. It imparts to them some kind of intelligence. They're able to use weapons. And then the story fast forwards to 2001, where a similar obelisk is unearthed on the moon, and that is going to point us even further out into the stars. And that's Arthur C. Clarke. One of the most elegant ways of imagining that aliens would help us or interfere with us by installing some kind of device that would give us a boost at one point, give us a boost again. Not that they would show up and probe our ani with special tools or mutilate cattle. Yeah.
And it's explored a little bit also in the movie Stargate, where they discovered the presence of portals to other planets that have been left there, and the other species have come here because I think they helped them build the pyramids. There is the popular theory, somewhat popular theory, of the fact that maybe life on Earth was seeded by beings from other planets and we're just an outpost. We could be a science experiment, we could be an outpost, we could have been bacteria that was dropped into the ocean that eventually evolved.
Speak for yourself.
I'm not sure I fully evolved yet.
I'm trying not to. I'm resisting it as much as possible.
There's those theories where, there are civilizations that are multitudes of times older than we are and came here at some point, dropped off a petri dish, and we're the results.
You see that in a movie called Prometheus, I think it is, which I thought was a bit of a mess, unfortunately, but I did like the pretext where you saw that happening and our DNA got interfered with. The movie you mentioned, Stargate, which I haven't seen, but I know it's based around the Great Pyramid of Giza, what's built on the Giza Plateau being a favorite for alienologists, let's call them, to speculate about something that we could not possibly have produced ourselves. Clearly evidence of some kind of extraterrestrial intervention. I don't buy that myself. If you've been to any of the major cathedrals in the world, in Montreal and Europe, and looked at what those people built in stone with no fucking tools at all,
it's mind-blowing.
It's mind-blowing. Yeah. The flying buttresses, the beautiful windows and all that, and carved it out of stone. Anyways, not to get too far off on a tangent, but I can believe the Egyptians somehow built an enormous pile of stones on their own. Sorry to all those people who think otherwise.
And nobody left some roadmaps? I found the set of plans in the sand.
Clearly, Richard and I both are more or less in the same place on this. Has to be other life out there, but it's either too far away or it's separated. Richard raised the excellent point in time from us. I was listening to something the other day, a scientist speculating about this question, and he used a really great visual metaphor. It was fireflies going off in the night. One would go off here. A few seconds later, you get another firefly here to express the briefness of their life as a civilization, but also how we'd have to overlap in time as well as space. In the movie Contact, with Jodie Foster, not Judy Foster, but her sister Jodie Foster from 1997. The premise here is that our first television transmissions, unfortunately, Adolf Hitler opening the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games, jet off into space at the speed of light, which is the speed at which electromagnetic waves propagate. They're picked up by a civilization on the star Vega, which is really close. Vega's like 26 light years away or something. It's one of the brightest stars in the summer sky. They go, oh, there's somebody there, and they bounce back to us and say, we've received your message. I don't quite say that, but they send a signal that is detected on Earth by Jodie Foster as a scientist, and encoded with the signal that says, hey, we've noticed you're there, are the plans to build a machine that allows Jodie Foster eventually, not going to go through the whole movie, to visit the Vegan civilization by traveling through a wormhole. So they don't come here, but they do send a cab to pick us up, bring us back to there.
An Uber. Space Uber.
They send a space Uber to pick us up and say, get a quick look at why stuff's over there. So that's like a feel-good movie. I think you look at that, you think, I hope it's like that, because the alien that talks to Jodie Foster when she's on the alien world imitates her father, who's died when she's a young woman.
That's right.
And tells her, I'm taking this form because we think it'll be easier for you. Just to let you know, there's all kinds of beautiful stuff going on out here. It's wonderful, and there's all kinds of civilizations. You're just getting a taste of it. Now, go home and stop building those nuclear weapons. I think something like that.
We get something similar in the movie Arrival, where aliens have landed. They look like some sort of Cthulhu creatures.
Octopods, they call them, right?
yeah. Octopods behind the glass. Once we decipher their language, they give humans the ability to break linear time, to be able to have memories of the future. So they alter their perception of time.
And they communicate with these symbols, right? These complex symbols that they kind of draw in ink that they jet towards the character who's a linguist inside their spacecraft. It's like hovering over Montana or something. Well, a bunch of them have landed.
So here we have two kinds of, three movies almost that give you the idea of gifts being given by other civilizations, whether it's the gift of a craft to visit or a new way of thinking, or possibly in 2001 where they give you markers saying follow the dots and eventually
we will help you evolve,
reach the stars,
like
however you want to see it.
In a sense that we're going to follow as we become more attuned to the universe. The other movie I'm thinking of now as we talk about it that took a positive view towards aliens was 1951's The Day the Earth Stood Still, which we may have talked about in an earlier episode. This isn't a review of it. Basically, an alien comes to Earth, he lands in Washington, D.C., of all places. He's going to introduce himself to the people of Earth. We, of course, take a shot at him, destroying something he's got in his hand, which he explains was he was going to give it to the President of the United States, and it would help him to, I think, see what life on other planets looks like.
Early iPhone, let's say. So that was gone. And,
he spends some time living in Washington, D.C. Does this alien being called Klaatu, who looks suspiciously like an insurance salesman. At the end, I think he addresses the United Nations or something. And he's saying, listen, you've got two choices, you people. If you continue on your current path, and let's face it, this is 6 years after the end of World War II, 6 years after the atomic bomb was developed, you continue on this path and you will obliterate yourself. The other path, which we would prefer, there's more of us out here, would prefer you choose is one of peaceful coexistence existence. The choice is yours. A very 1951 and 4 years after Roswell, so the timing you can imagine was quite good. A movie well worth seeing, even though the special effects are, we could probably do better here in the semi-retired studio with some tinfoil and saran wrap.
One of the messages of that, and I think it was portrayed as sort of a socialist message, and this is the thing where here we have these benevolent, and I'm doing giant air quotes here, benevolent overlords who are willing to come and oversee us, make sure we do things right.
Oh,
I
see.
There's that whole message of you may think you're in charge, and then you would imagine a pushback from people on Earth saying, that's all very nice that you're willing to help us, but we've lost our free will.
You've taken it from us. Yeah, I can see how that would be the case in the 1950s, heading into the McCarthy witch hunt hearings in that same time frame.
It would look a little like communism or socialism to people of that time.
The other one that's I think I'd bring up quickly, which is a book, not a movie, is Childhood's End.
Oh, yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke. I haven't read this for years, but in it, a race of aliens arrive in giant spaceships hovering over the major cities of the Earth, and they declare that in 25 years, they're going to show themselves. And over the course of the 25 years, communication goes on between various people on Earth and these giant hovering spaceships. They call themselves the Overlords, or we call them the Overlords. I can't remember which. At the end of the 25 years, Corellin, with a K, who is the leader of the Overlords, says he's going to reveal himself to the people of Earth. They've been around long enough. There's been enough talking. I'm going to come out and show myself. And when he does, he is the spitting image of the devil.
Oh.
Tall, black, horned, the pitchfork tail, the wings, the whole thing. The conclusion, or let's say what Arthur C. Clarke puts out there, is that clearly they were here before. The experience was so traumatic for us that we baked that image into our darkest myths, and they became the devil, demons, the whole thing. But in fact, they're not. And their whole purpose in this case, the Overlord's purpose in this book, is to help us evolve to another level of consciousness. So again, a very positive story.
And so those are some of the few movies where or books where the aliens are sort of a friend. In popular culture, most of the time they're portrayed as a conquering force or the enemy. Shoot first, shoot second, shoot third, ask questions fourth.
We do seem to be a little bit paranoid if we look at sheer volume alone, and we're going to talk about some of those.
Yeah. I wonder how how that parallels with our thoughts on immigration as time has gone by in the last couple of hundred years. And it's viewed as immigration is good, immigration is bad, and then we tie that to our science fiction because essentially if aliens are coming here, it's immigration.
You're right, it is immigration of a sort, especially as shown by District 9, which is maybe the one movie that's neither positive nor negative. Mm-hmm. They're here, they're sick, they get off, we don't take care of them.
No, we put them in internment camps. Which is exactly what happens to some of the waves of immigrants that came over. We set them up in camps with them there, and we kind of hope they'll just disappear.
Or reservations, let's face it, we've done that. All kinds of delightful stuff. So, to your point, and I can't think of something earlier than that. The first major work of science fiction that tackled the idea of aliens coming here was H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, the novel published in 1898. Famously, the Martians come here. Their intention is to basically cook us with their laser beams and take over our planet because theirs has become barren. So the first time out, aliens bad. Aliens bad.
Danger,
killing
Will
us.
Robinson.
Danger. So they didn't get off to a good start.
And it's interesting how a lot of the early science fiction was always based out of Mars, right? There was Martians. Martians was the thing. For the longest time, we thought, there could be no life on Mars. There's no water. And recently, what have we discovered on Mars?
Water. I know.
While we're on Martians, you have Heinlein's, it is Heinlein, right? Stranger in a Strange Land?
Yes.
Which portrays as a Martian who comes to Earth.
Valentine Michael Smith, right?
Is that his name? Okay, okay.
I don't know how he got that name. I don't know. He sounds like a Fuller brush salesman or something.
I read that a long time ago. But again, he's like a friendly alien and set in the 60s, so a lot of peace and love, and he's a very peace and love kind of guy. And I just remember this one scene from there where he sees people walking on the grass, and he's all offended because he's like, this is a living organism, man. It's like you're right. Walking. And they say, no, try it. It feels good. So he takes, I guess he's wearing shoes. Maybe he's not. And he walks on the grass and he's like, oh, you're right. The grass likes it when we walk on it. He could communicate with the grass. And it was this, I remember reading it at a time going, I need to get more stoned.
Yeah, that's dug up a distant memory because I probably read it when you did, like 40 years ago or something. I would not have come up with that. All I've got from it is grokking. The idea of grokking, G-R-O-K, which is to kind of understand or empathize with something really deeply. I would say, I really grok, Richard.
Yeah.
You lost your license last week. I grok, now you got to take an Uber everywhere, something like that.
I kept thinking it's a computer term because I think it's close to grep.
Yeah.
You must grok the interface.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you probably could have to grok an interface, when you could mention it. So, that was a bad one. And then up into the 1950s, after the very positive Day the Earth Stood Still that we talked about briefly, there was the somewhat famous invasion of the body snatchers, which I've heard described as interesting that you mentioned the socialist communist threat, as a metaphor for creeping communism. Mm-hmm. Because in this particular movie, you never meet the aliens, but what you see is that these pods are being distributed by other humans who have already been taken over by whatever force is managing this operation, and the pods morph into the particular human being. So if someone would, let's say, would hide a pod in my bathroom, and the pod would slowly become me. I would disappear or something, and the pod person would be like me, but not like me. And this is all happening in a small California town. So you can see there where the creeping communism metaphor would work, right? People being slowly subverted to this horrible other political system and losing their Americanism in this case or something, or Canadianism.
It's a threat from outer space.
Yeah, and it's a good movie, by the way. Even better, I have to say, Richard reminded me a couple of weeks ago that it was remade in 1978, and I think actually the 1978 version is better than the original. If you feel like watching a movie, try Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978. It's really good. There's a lot of others to look at. In the late 60s, the English production company Hammer, which I used to know a lot about and I've forgotten, made a movie called Quatermass and the Pit, known as 5 Million Years to Earth here in North America. I saw this on one of these Saturday night movie shows in 1976 or something. It's Martians again. In this movie, which takes place in the present day, the authorities in London, England, uncover what turns out to be a spaceship buried below an underground station. That's their metro, or what we call Metro Montreal, but their underground station. And it's surrounded by deformed skulls of early humans. Anyways, they suss out this mystery. Turns out the Martians, who look like giant grasshoppers, really bad special effects.
So far we've had the Cthulhu-like octopi from Arrival. We have the prawns in District 9, and here we have grasshoppers.
Richard, what's your point?
I'm not sure.
Not good looking so far, the aliens, eh? Yeah. Not a handsome bunch. Yeah. At any rate, the scientists investigating this phenomena discovered that the Martians left their planet 5 million years ago, as is in the title. They came to Earth looking to colonize it. There was some kind of mass killing going on Mars. They're able to project a race memory into us. This is going to sound strange. It's almost as though people in the vicinity of the London Underground Station are having the memories of the Martian war of destruction or attrition that took place 5 million years ago. And the whole thing winds up in this giant sort of metaphysical, paraphysical explosion at the end, where you see this giant glowing insect hovering over the city of London, and then cut to credits. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say they're giving us this memory so that we become sympathetic to their plight and the fact that they've come here and accept them as, if you want, immigrants.
Well, see, that would have been smarter, but they're not smart.
Instead, giant cricket rubbing its legs.
And the thing I love about this movie is I think to myself, it's being filmed in 1967, released in early 68, contemporary exactly to 2001: A Space Odyssey. So there you've got Stanley Kubrick, as good a director as you can get, cutting-edge story, cutting-edge techniques, a very beautiful movie, as anybody would attest, a very intellectual story, and then you've got this with
a stoned guy who fell asleep in a field and heard crickets.
Exactly.
Woke up with a cricket on his nose and goes, "That's it. Yeah. Aliens."
Yes, aliens.
This is what Martians look like.
Complete with one female character who all the guys keep grabbing by the elbow to help her along. She's got 1967 hair, and in the end, she screams and gets.
Of course, she's got to scream.
Yeah, it's very period in that sense. Yeah. You can imagine the Beatles walking around the corner wearing their Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band outfits. You would go, "Oh, there they are." Of course, they're around the corner taping the album. It's about that.
So when Beatles album came out in 67, it was Sgt. Pepper, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. It's interesting when we think of aliens, the way we've decided to portray them. In some cases, they look like us. If you think of Close Encounters, it's a sort of vaguely humanoid,
very much so.
Humanoid creature. And then you have across the board, you have all kinds of depictions of things, but always sort of Earth-like creatures. Grasshopper, octopus.
Yes.
It would be interesting to speculate what aliens from another galaxy would look like. Because right now we're looking at them as always being carbon-based. And what would they look like if they were not carbon-based? And I think, didn't Star Trek have an episode where there was an acid-based creature?
The Devil in the Dark? It's a silicon-based life.
Silicon.
That's that big thing that crawls across the ground and leaves a message saying no kill I when it withdraws. And they think it's killing miners, but it's just protecting its eggs. And Spock does a mind meld with it and the whole thing,
Was it a romantic mind meld?
Well, Spock, eh?
Yeah.
He had unusual taste in partners, right? Remember he had that 7-year itch episode we had to go to Vulcan or he was going to explode. He threw soup at the nurse.
Yeah, but doesn't he have to fight Kirk in the end?
Yes, he does. He has to fight Kirk. Kills him, but not really. Because they faked it.
Yeah.
And the fact that he thinks he's killed Kirk shakes him out of his Vulcan mating insanity. Yeah, I know, eh? I'd have kept clear of that one.
There's another race, Vulcans, right? And giving them this bizarre sort of almost animalistic mating drive.
The mating urge, yes.
Because the Vulcans obviously come from Vulcan, right?
Vulcan.
Another planet. I don't know if it's ever clearly explained which galaxy it's in.
I don't think it is. I think it's in our galaxy, but they kind of mentioned it.
Okay.
But I think the weirdest alien I can think of that I've seen in recent memory is in the movie Annihilation that you put me onto.
Oh, the Shimmer.
The Shimmer. Yeah. You want to do this one? Because,
Well, you saw it more recently.
I
so,
did. So something has happened on the West Coast, on California coast. An area of terrain that they're calling the Shimmer has appeared. When people go into the Shimmer, there's like time dilation effects. Their DNA is getting mutated. A bunch of soldiers are sent in. Only one survives, and he's I think he's the husband
That's right.
of one of the main characters. So a team of women scientists go in to figure out what's going on inside the Shimmer. You never really see an alien per se, but at one point, one of the women starts turning into a plant. It's like her DNA is morphing.
There's also a bear that comes and attacks them.
Yeah,
Bear kills a couple of
bear.
them. I think it's proposed that she accepts the transformation into a plant as a way to escape the madness of what's going on.
That sounds right.
She becomes a plant to escape the madness of what's going around. Just that sentence doesn't seem to make sense.
I like that sentence.
But there's a lot of that, the morphing of the DNA where things become other things.
Yes.
And I think she comes out and she explains at the end something like, it wants to take over everything. The premise is that the Earth is doomed. The Shimmer will encompass all life on Earth.
Yeah, we have no way to really fight it. It's not like we can shoot weapons at it like in some of the cheaper alien movies, like Independence Day or something.
Yeah.
You can't put a bunch of guys in fighter jets to, shoot it down. Not happening.
That was a very interesting take on alien life, if you want, where it comes in and then morphs and recreates new life. So you have animals that are a mix of two animals. You have the woman who becomes a plant. There's the deer with the weird antlers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No common reference points with us. The direct opposite of, say, a Predator, Arnold Schwarzenegger's 1987 movie, where the Predator looks like a giant squid face guy, very muscular, very heavily armored, very heavily weaponed, and Arnold spends half the movie shooting him up. But yeah, I love that. And you also put me on to Nope.
Nope, yes.
Last year's Nope, which was really cool, really unusual. Nope, N-O-P-E. Nope, I'm not going there.
I love it. He says it in the movie at one point where there's something, it's coming, he sees it there, and he knows if he looks at it, it's going to attack him, and so he goes, nope.
That's right.
And he's like, I'm not looking. That's the only reference they made, the reference they make to the title.
That's right. Yeah.
And in here, the alien, Dave, is what?
Its own ship. It seems to be a single entity that appears in the sky over this horse farm, hiding inside a cloud, and it seems to be eating horses. And when it's finished eating said horses, it drops waste out of itself.
Horses, and if there happens to be a rider?
The rider gets eaten too. And it shits all over the earth. And this older man, the father of the two main characters, gets killed when a coin hits him on the head, which must have been in the pocket of whoever got eaten when the alien ate.
Previously.
So if you can even follow that, kids, imagine it. But what's really interesting about this story is that the alien is its own ship. When it finally appears before our characters at the end of the movie, and they've discovered they can defeat it with a giant balloon or something like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the mechanism here, but it reveals itself, and it's like this giant origami folding thing. It looks like giant sails in the sky, like a big flower petal.
Yeah, or a giant box kite.
Or a giant box kite, yes.
Yeah.
Like a giant box kite combined with a giant flower, like a giant blossom. It's super imaginative. It's super different. And the alien, and it appears to be only one. There's no sense that these things have landed everywhere and they're trying to take over the earth. Just one really hungry alien hovering over this horse farm in the West.
Needless to say, major spoilers for a somewhat recent movie if you hadn't seen it. What's interesting is also at the beginning, when you do see it very briefly at the beginning, it looks like your standard flying saucer. And that's what you think it is at first.
It does,
until it assumes its other shape. I don't know if you want to call it its eating shape.
That's fine.
It's put on its bib.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Lunchtime. And it goes after people. As it approaches, also, the electricity cuts out.
Yeah, there's other effects like that.
Yeah,
that's
there's
right.
the electricity. And so they have to devise some sort of early warning system to know when it's in the air, and devise this whole thing with balloons that would then be triggered when the power goes out. Very interesting, and a very interesting way of neutralizing or defeating the creature. Very different from what you'd expect. expect. It's not guns, it's not missiles, it's not a boxload of grenade, it's not a virus sent up through some sort of cell phone. Independence Day.
Yeah, don't watch that movie if you haven't yet.
You would think they come from
Save your
space.
money. Save your money.
They have the same port as us, you know. Oh, look,
Yeah.
they're using USB also. It's
Yeah.
it's unanimous.
You've got to say that, and they're all recent, that Arrival, and I'd like to mention the fact that Arrival is made by a director from Quebec, Denis Villeneuve. I love this guy. He's our guy. Blade Runner, Prisoners, any of his movies, watched them. So we had Arrival with the extremely innovative octopods and their time warping method of communications. Annihilation with the shimmer and the DNA warping organism. And now Nope. These are really unusual portrayals of aliens. Far from the Gorn from Star Trek. Remember the big lizard man who fights Kirk? You know, just looks like a guy, you know,
In a rubber suit.
In a rubber suit, wearing a mankini. Yeah, other end of that spectrum.
Yeah.
Not that that was a bad episode. Because Star Trek is worth talking about a little bit. Original series now. Because it was different in the sense that it said, okay, we're out in the galaxy. It's full of races that look like us. And the way that's happening is we're only visiting Class M planets. Because there were other things they encountered. Gas clouds and energy beings.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
You know, they were in there. But there was all kinds of people just walking around wearing weird looking hats. Breathing an oxygen, nitrogen atmosphere. That made for great storytelling. And it was, again, very positive in the sense that we were out there. We were ambassadors, you know.
Yeah, and the premise was Starfleet or whatever, the United Federation of Planets. There was no war. War had been defeated, if you want, and there was no poverty. There's no need for money. We live in this society. Everything is perfected. Now we're exploring the star outside of our known, obviously, a few planets because you have Vulcan and a few races. And their idea was their 5-year mission to explore Brave New Worlds.
Yes, that's right.
Not Brave New Worlds, but
Strange New Worlds.
Strange New Worlds.
To seek out new life and new civilizations.
Yes.
And
to
so
go
they
where no man has gone before.
before. That's right. Who they sent out? They sent out James T. Kirk to mate with as many alien species women as he could because they all instantly fell in love with him.
He's like the human shimmer.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he is.
He's
exactly.
gonna
Yeah. Or
go
he's like
for-
Leisure Suit Larry, but for the cosmos. Listen to last week's episode for Leisure Suit Larry.
Yeah, that's right, Leisure. Except he scores.
I mean, he even managed to seduce a Romulan commander. And they're supposed to be unseducible. They're like this totally warlike species. Kirk winds up getting on board her ship, made up to look like a Romulan. So he's got stupid ears stuck on and his eyebrows are clipped. And she falls for him instantly, decides to turn over all the secrets of their cloaking device because he's just so magnetically, sexually attractive.
It reminds me of the silliness of that James Bond movie where Sean Connery becomes, I forget if he becomes Japanese. He integrates. He integrates
That's right,
in
You only live twice.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. Yeah. He's a 6'3" Scottish guy with a hairy chest. And they shave his eyebrows, and suddenly he's like a Japanese fisherman, eh?
And he passes, and no one notices.
No one notices. Yeah, it's like one of ours. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's really something, eh?
Yeah.
There's a movie out there called Zardoz, where he's wearing that Mankini movie. Why he did that, I don't know.
I don't remember.
He's not an alien. Is he an alien? No, he's not an alien.
I'm not sure. I think he's traveling to an alien planet. Is the planet Zardoz? It's all women. Something.
That sounds right.
It's almost that's like a dream for him and
I
Kirk.
understand the Mankini. I get it now.
This is like the ideal planet for him and Kirk.
Yeah, it would be, wouldn't it? Yeah. So that's the Star Trek universe, which is a great universe. I love it to this day.
And again, a mostly positive portrayal of other civilizations.
Yes,
some of them
so.
are odd. You have that one planet where they're at war with each other, but the computers are computing the war, and then so many people have to go into a chamber and get vaporized.
Yes, exactly.
And so they said, well, we have civilized war. I'm like, really? You're missing the point here, buddy.
Yeah, kind of. And then Kirk proves it to them by blowing up their computer and they start fighting again. Yeah, so he reintroduces them to bloodshed and then probably sleeps with their queen. I can't remember.
Maybe that's what starts the bloodshed again.
Probably it is.
They're like, now we remember 2 million years ago, this is what happened.
So, that's Star Trek. I didn't watch the later series. I don't know if they're the same, but they're fun for that reason.
Yeah.
Getting back to books, movies, whatever, there was The Thing from 1982. Love that movie.
One of the great ones we've mentioned it a few times where an alien crash lands on Earth and then is thawed. And of course, all hell breaks loose when he's thawed. What I liked about that is when we were looking at our list, we came up with a list of like 23 movies. We chose somewhat unique type movies. We're not going to name them all here. We didn't want your standard space shoot 'em up kind of things.
No.
So what's interesting is The Thing and The Blob both have aliens that are defeated / neutralized by sending them to the cold. And hopefully we'll leave notes. This mystery meat should not be thawed and eaten at any room temperature. And that's how they neutralize the enemy. I thought that was an interesting take on the standard shoot 'em up kind of alien movie.
Blow their head off sort of thing with a weapon.
Yeah. Shoot every missile we can at them. Think of all the Godzilla movies or any type of movie. As you mentioned, predator, prey, same sort of thing. The other one where we have an interesting sort of alien is Signs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the M. Night Shyamalan.
Signs is good, yeah. Yeah, which you encouraged me to rewatch. I'm glad you did, because I saw it in the theater when it came out, and I came out of it hating it, and I was wrong.
An interesting portrayal of the aliens. Again, they're slightly humanoid, making sort of crickety kind of sounds. But what I loved about this movie is the way in which they're defeated. It's not shotguns to the head. It's not, a bag full of grenades. They can be defeated with water. If you expose them to water, they die, which I thought was an interesting premise as opposed to...
Well, it is, because it's the most common substance on Earth, and there it is. It was toxic to them. A bit like the Martians in the earlier war, the world's being defeated by bacteria. Because that's what happens. We're not able to get at them, so the bacteria does it.
If we think of that movie, I think Annihilation is their revenge. They send bacteria back down, space bacteria that essentially is going to take over the planet.
Probably that's it, eh? I hate to do this. There's something I do have to loop back to. You reminded me, as you mentioned The Thing, that it has one of the great screen beards in it, which is Kurt Russell's. I would put that up against Sharlto Copley's District 9 beard or John Krasinski's Quiet Place beard as the three great beards of modern cinema. Think about that, and you'll see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I had to do that. Back on track.
Yeah, that could be the artwork.
It could be for this episode, or maybe an entire episode.
An entire episode on cinematic beards.
Cinematic beards. Yeah, I think that's, again, one of those things that an author or a director or a writer has to come up with is, how are we going to defeat this thing?
It's always our first instinct that it's going to be hostile.
Yes, that's right. Like the banner for this episode, eat us, kill us, replace us, we don't know, right?
Yeah.
Mostly it seems to be kill us, we're noticing.
Yes, in popular culture it seems to be.
Bit of species paranoia for sure. So A Quiet Place, which I mentioned in passing a minute ago, is an interesting one too, because in this case the aliens are sightless. I don't think we're even given much information about them. They're there. We're introduced to the cast of characters, which is just a family. So a very small cast of characters. And we understand rather quickly that Earth is, or at least their part of the Earth, has been infested with these aliens, these rapacious, really fast, rampaging aliens that can't see but hunt based on sound. And we know that because a little boy in the family makes a noise as they're crossing a bridge, walking home with a little toy space shuttle he has. He turns on the space shuttle, makes a little siren sound, and out of nowhere comes this alien, which just basically takes him off. We don't see what happens, but it's killed them, obviously. Yeah. And we spend the rest of the movie getting to understand this family's plight. They try to live without speaking to one another in complete silence. There's a really tense scene where the mother, Emily Blunt, gives birth in the basement. Meanwhile, there's an alien in the house.
And one of their kids can't speak. So
she's deaf.
She's deaf. So she's not necessarily aware of the dangers of sound because she can't realize she's making sound. And again, in here, we have an interesting defeat of the alien, or their weakness is exposed as being feedback. The girl has the hearing aid, and at a certain point, it comes near a microphone or something, it screeches out, it halts the aliens in their tracks because they're so sensitive to sound that this really high-pitched feedback it doesn't kill them, but it sort of immobilizes them, and then, of course...
gives our heroes some kind of defense.
Well, also gives them a reason to use the shotgun.
Exactly.
So we've been talking about water and other things. Now, we need to go back to the shotgun here, and then they can be defeated that way. I don't know if you saw the second one. The second one, they take that even further.
I did, but I honestly don't remember much about it.
They end up broadcasting it over a radio station because there's a little island they have an issue with water, the aliens, but it gets across on a boat. And
is Emily Blunt in the second one too?
Yeah, she's in there too.
That might have been my sole motivation for watching the movie and why I don't remember much about it.
Yes, we know your crush. Yeah.
So that was a good one. I'm looking at the list and I'm trying to see if there's any. One you put me onto, Cowboys and Aliens. That's unique.
That is very unique.
And I would have skipped it on the title alone. Bad habit of mine, but you said, no, you need to watch it.
Daniel Craig and Harrison Ford in a Western.
Yes.
A Western that just happens to have aliens.
Yeah, and why not?
So they can use their guns to shoot the aliens. A very original premise. Most alien things are set in our modern times,
of course.
Right? Yeah. Except H.G. Wells, that's about as far back as we go. And even that would be almost past Western days, right?
Literally.
The end of the there's still the West in the U.S.
Same neck of the woods, though. And in this case, the aliens are here for our gold, which is so interesting because that's what all the people were out west looking for anyways, right? Was all the settlers.
They joined the gold rush.
They joined the gold rush. Oh. Terrific movie. Some great ultra-violence in the early going from Daniel Craig as he beats up Harrison Ford's son, the character who's sort of an asshole, and gives him a couple of good ultra-violence beatings. But the aliens turn out to be hominids. I think we call they look awful. They look like dried up, horrible creature-like things, and they fly around eating us.
We haven't had really a portrayal of aliens that come down and look more and more like us as a way of saying, maybe we'll transform ourselves when we come down so that we won't be as shocking to them. And
I say they all look like Emily Blunt.
Let's say.
Just throwing that on the table there,
Yes.
We might be more inclined to enjoy their presence or to feel less threatened.
You don't tend to see that kind of thing because then there would be an ethical dilemma for most people. You'd feel less inclined to destroy them if they look like you and act like you, right?
Well, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. We would, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
It's easy to kill something like the prawns in District 9.
So you have to wonder if there is intelligent life. I'll take the if out there. If they have somehow come across our little Firefly light in their explorations of the almost imaginably large universe, if they have come across us and decide to watch some of our whatever we're beaming
antics,
and they're watching our space Netflix, and they're like, should we really be going down there? They're not super friendly to their own kind when it comes to immigration. If they watch some of their movies, they might be inclined to hide amongst us because we are sort of warlike, ask questions much later.
Probably be inclined to give us a pass.
It would be sad if that was the case, in that if a civilization had come here and had seeded life on Earth here and decides now, we'll let our children go down much later. Let's go see how our Petri dish went. And I'm like, holy shit, we shit the bed on this one. Where's the Adjustment Bureau when you need it? And they come down and they say, it turned into this really warlike kind of thing. And I'm not sure we could expose ourselves to them now because they would be hostile to any foreign visitors.
I'd probably just move on if I was them. X on that one. Not so good.
Mars.
Yeah.
Maybe we should sow some water on Mars now. Maybe that's what.
Look at this Twitter thing.
Holy crap!
Holy shit, what are they doing? I know. That's bad. Yeah, that's a really good point. Why would we assume, and I think it's a bit of human vanity, that alien species would be so interested in us? I'm not sure we would behave that way as we go out toward the stars. You look at our passive messages we've sent out there, like something we bolted onto the Voyager spacecraft just saying, hey, we're here, trying to demonstrate that we understand mathematics and this is what we look like. I don't know that we would be so keen to find out what they're doing either if we didn't really understand what we were visiting.
I have to wonder what our reaction would be to, let's say, 100 years from now, we have close to light speed vehicle, we're out exploring and we come across another planet. Are we going to be just as warlike as we expect them to be? If you think of the terrestrial discoveries of the New World, we weren't exactly friendly when we landed on this side of the pond.
No, we weren't, as a matter of fact. I mean, you could pretty much ask anybody.
We've wiped out entire civilizations of our own human beings here. You have to wonder, we go to a Zepton X4 and we get there and these guys have 3 arms instead of 2 and we're like, freaks, shoot them. It would be a sad day in our existence if that would be our reaction. But again, we show up there, would they have the same reaction to us? It's a very delicate experience. How would we react to something completely alien to us?
To your point about our warlike nature, H.G. Wells, in The War of the Worlds, there's the famous introduction. I'm paraphrasing, but it's going to be in the show notes, about intellects vast and cool, looking across the depths of space. Could we ever imagine that such a thing would be the case and that they were slowly but surely drawing their plans against us? You hear Morgan Freeman narrate this in the 2006 Steven Spielberg remake of War of the Worlds. Oh. So there's that famous thing, but then after it, a few paragraphs later, he says something to the effect of, given our human notable lack of mercy, how could we feel anything negative towards the Martians if they warred in the same spirit? We had nothing to say here. Yes, they've come to take over our planet and they're laser beaming us all to death, but you know what? We would have done the same fucking thing because that's what we're like. And that's H.G. Wells in 1898.
I sometimes think about this. If we were to be sitting here one day and news breaks on whatever news source we have that we've received an actual signal from outer space, whether it's through SETI or any of the other initiatives that are out there, and saying we have found a message, and let's say we could recognize the language, we could interpret it somehow. Maybe it comes with a how-to guide at the beginning of its message.
Vegan for dummies?
Yes. I think that would be a major upheaval of our society here. I think a lot of people would panic. Some would be ecstatic about this thing, that we finally made first contact.
I know that the theory is there'll be mass panic, and that's why the governments are hiding their information, Area 51, whatever. I personally would love it. I don't know about you. I can't imagine panicking unless it said, we're on our way to kill all of you. You've got 30 days. Make peace with yourselves. Then I might get a little nervous.
An eviction notice from the space landlord. Yeah, we're putting a highway through here. It's funny you mentioned that with the talk of the Pentagon releasing a whole bunch of declassified documents a few years ago. What was that called? The Pentagon Papers?
Oh, yeah.
It was a name for it. The Big Dump.
The Big Dump.
The Big...
Yeah, the Big Dump.
I came across this line here that says, after the success of Spielberg's movie, of course being E.T., caused an international impact, and United Nations meeting was convened in late 1977 to discuss UFOs. So even at the United Nations in the
Close
late
Encounters, that would have been Close Encounters, right?
Sorry, you're right. Yes, it is Close Encounters, not ET. You're right. Yeah, Close Encounters. And in January 1979, the British House of Lords held a 3-hour-long debate on the subject of UFOs, and a motion eventually defeated that the British government should make public what it knew about them.
Well, that's just great. What a bunch of stiff upper lip wankers.
Yeah.
Snobs, as Basil Fawlty said once, while beating his car with a tree branch.
Yeah, across the pond. They may or may not have information there too.
On that score, you'd have to figure somebody would have loose lips at one point. Some country somewhere would fuck up and we'd find out. Maybe the U.S. are good at this, although it appears that every official down there has classified documents in his house at this point, so maybe less so than we might have expected.
Jimmy Carter too recently.
Jimmy Carter too.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you know what? I mean, maybe I've got some here. I should just look.
I saw that recently, and Carter is the one who passed during his administration, they passed a law that you're not supposed to classify.
Okay.
But it was only implemented by the time Ronald Reagan was in place. So who knows? Yeah, maybe those Roswell documents are sitting in
Mike Pence's basement.
Gerald Ford's summer cabin.
Gerald Ford's summer cabin. And it occurred to me, now that we're podcasting, we've joined the symphony of signals that is propagating into space.
I guess it could, as long as it's, usually we tend to think of those as radio signals, whereas these are on-demand signals. I guess now is the good time to announce that we've built a 300-foot antenna on top of your building here. Everything we broadcast is like, you think of the old, what was that, RKO Pictures thing at the beginning of the movies with the sound waves shooting out from the antenna.
And I thank you for that extra effort, Richard. That's going to come in handy, because I do like to listen to our podcast myself really loud in the middle of the night. So now I can broadcast them to the neighborhood.
Well, how else are we supposed to get new subscribers except to beam it directly into them?
You're right. So if anybody out there is listening and hasn't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, Richard's raised an excellent point. We'd love it if you would. Yeah. We put out these videos or these audios, whatever you're going to call them, once a week, and hope you enjoy the trip with us.
Leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you come across our podcast, whether it's as a podcast or as an audio podcast on YouTube. Leave us a note, leave us a comment, leave us a rating. We'd really enjoy it.
We're desperate for feedback, is what Richard's saying.
Yes. In case aliens come, we need feedback to feed them.
Yes.
Dave, I'm going to wish you a great week.
That was a great discussion. I wish you a great week yourself, and I'm not sure what we're doing next week yet. We'll come up with something.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Yes.
All right.
Have a good one. Bye.